What's going on, guys? Supersavage789 here, bringing you guys another video. Today we're doing What If Deku Had the Omnitrix Part 2. In the last part, we covered how Izuku ended up getting the Omnitrix, as well as how he used it to enter UA. After beating Bakugo, despite getting the wrong alien, Izuku was approached by the blonde, asking him about his watch, which is where we left off. Izuku would pause, trying to comprehend what Bakugo said, who stands there, waiting for his answer. We saw how easily Izuku gave up his quirk to Bakugo in canon, so here wouldn't be any different. Here, however, Bakugo would believe Izuku telling him about the watch, since it is much more outlandish, yet understandable for the origin of said watch. Bakugo tells Izuku that this watch might be a wolf in sheep's clothing. It might seem like a blessing, but in reality, it could be a curse. People with quirks can never time out of them, but Izuku only gets 10 minutes. What if he gets killed the moment that drops? If he's not going to be smart, you might as well kill him right now. Bakugo would walk off, leaving Izuku in thought. What does he mean? Time would pass, with the typical things occurring, ultimately leading to the USJ. Despite his character development, Bakugo would still leap at Kurogiri to attack him. He does however push Kirishima backwards to protect him. This means that when Kurogiri splits everyone up, Kirishima would be in the flood zone, along with Tsuyu, Izuku, and Mineta. Due to the environment they're in, Izuku would have the perfect alien for the job. He would access the watch and becomes Ripjaws, saving the other three and throwing them onto the ship. He then leaps onto it, telling them he has the situation covered. To make sure they aren't wasting time, Izuku tells them to go help Aizawa. While Mineta is scared, Kirishima and Tsuyu are more willing to do so. So Tsuyu would grab Mineta and throws him to land, while grabbing Kirishima and leaping over there herself. The villains would try to chase down the kids, but Izuku leaps back into the water, cutting them off. He would then proceed to demolish the villains, using his aquatic agility and super strength to his advantage. Kirishima, Tsuyu, and Mineta would begin fighting some of the fodder villains, alongside their teacher. Aizawa insists on them running, which Mineta would be more than happy to do, however, Kirishima insists they stay. So Aizawa asks them to handle the villains while he rushes at Shigaraki. The students begin fighting with Mineta going into a panicked, crazed state. He proceeds to throw a barrage of his balls at the villains, causing them to all be encumbered in one way or another. Kirishima would call Mineta cool for him trying to play this off as doing it on purpose. This could actually lead to these two having a better friendship moving forward. Over with Aizawa, he'd end up getting pinned down by the Nomu. Here though Izuku would be quick to help. Knowing his time is finite, Izuku would shoot himself out of the water like a torpedo, shouting that he'll save his teacher. His jaw grasps the Nomu's arm, with Izuku doing his best to pry him away from his teacher. He causes some bite marks onto the Nomu's flesh as he makes it release Aizawa from its grasp. As Aizawa leaps away, he looks at Shigaraki right before he can decay Izuku, so the Nomu would simply fling Izuku away, doing some damage to the fishman. Aizawa tells Izuku that he should attempt to flee with the others, however he refuses, as do Tsuyu and Kirishima. Kirishima would begin speaking for Mineta, saying how he doesn't want to leave either. Izuku would then rush at Nomu yet again, going to bite him, but that's when he hears beeping. He looks down and watches as he is engulfed in a red light, becoming human again. Remember, Izuku isn't physically gifted like in canon, meaning that right now, he's just a scrawny child staring up at a beast. It goes to punch Izuku, sending fear down his spine. His life flashes before his eyes as the Nomu throws a punch. It is, however, intercepted by none other than All Might. Aizawa would then begin to accompany the children away. Due to Aizawa's presence, Izuku wouldn't be able to argue, so he'd be dragged away by Aizawa's scarf with the other three having to follow suit. For the most part though, canon would follow itself from here. Bakugo and Shoto would assist All Might where needed. Then the rest of the faculty show up, leading to Shigaraki and Kurogiri fleeing. Afterwards, the UA Sports Festival would be announced, except here Aizawa isn't in bandages to the same degree. After class, Izuku would approach Bakugo, who would be a little taken aback by his appearance. Izuku explains to Bakugo that when he was fighting the Nomu and timed out, his body froze. If All Might didn't show up, he would have definitely died. He was thinking about what Bakugo told him earlier, so he'd asked Bakugo to train him now. Now, if this was Bakugo from our timeline, he would have told Izuku to kill himself, but remember, this Bakugo is already somewhat kinda, so he'd begrudgingly agree, so long as Izuku uses that watch thingy to train up Bakugo. In the 2 weeks, Bakugo and Izuku would train together intensely. Izuku would use the watch to train with Bakugo to make him stronger. Whenever he times out though, the training changes to be orientated to bulk up Izuku. Izuku's muscles, while not resembling anything near what they had in canon, are at a point where he isn't completely useless. He is also able to do some basic hand-to-hand combat. As for Bakugo, he'd pick up a few things from two of Izuku's aliens. He'd figure out a way to fire an attack similar to Heat Blast by using sweat all the way up to his elbow. He'd also figure out that you can make a more intense attack by placing your hands together and shooting a combined explosion, similar to how Eye Guy can combine his eyes. Bakugo also reminds Izuku to register the Omnitrix for the sports festival. Originally, I planned Izuku not to be able to use the watch during this, but due to his physical prowess being unsatisfactory, he probably won't get past the first round, which would make for a boring what if. The day of the sports festival would then arrive. Bakugo would still make a speech, which is pretty much the same. Everyone then heads over to the race. Izuku won't really need to think about what alien to use here. It's a race, so speed is key. Naturally, it's gotta be Accelerate. He pulls up the silhouette and presses the watch where he becomes Ditto. He'll have to make do. The race then begins. Izuku would be lagging behind due to his stubby legs, so he'd have to use his powers, splitting himself into quite a few clones. He begins to shimmy through the crowd as best he can, getting the typical Ditto humor. The robots show up and Ditto simply runs through, having to avoid any attacks. This would be rather comedic, watching Ditto split to dodge being hurt. They then show up to the crevice, where the Dittos all have to combine their noggins. Using a bunch of clones, Ditto would be able to build a bridge, allowing one of them to get to the other side. In the minefield, without the piece of the robot broken off, Ditto would have to move much more carefully, so I believe that Bakugo would come first, with Shoto in second. Izuku would pass, but would be towards the tail end of things, unfortunately. Deku would time out right before the selection of the teams, which luckily enough takes 10 minutes to do. I went back and checked. I doubt that Izuku's team would change though. Ida would associate Izuku as a rival, despite the fact that Izuku didn't get first place. So it means that Izuku would still have Hatsume, Uraraka, and Tokoyami. Izuku would make it clear to him that with the time limit they have, he wants to use the watch towards the tail end of the fight. That way they can make a final push to get as many points as possible. Over at Bakugo's team, less people will be trying to get on his team due to him possessing the 10 million. I imagine Kirishima would still want to join though. He would also make Mineta join due to remembering how heroic he was against the villains. To round out the team, we'd get Mina. When the cavalry battle does begin, Team Bakugo would immediately be targeted due to the 10 million. Thanks to Bakugo's ability of mild flight, Kirishima's short-range prowess, and Mina's ranged attacks, they're able to effectively keep people away from them. Kirishima would even slap Mineta on the back of the head by accident, leading to him frantically throwing his balls, taking down Shoji and Tsuyu momentarily. That's when Todoroki's team show up, creating a blockade of ice around them to stop anyone else intervening. Kirishima asks Bakugo what they're going to do. Without hesitation, Bakugo shouts attack. The two begin to rush each other, using Ida's engines to boost them. Bakugo shouts for Grapehead to throw his balls, which Mineta would do. Balls wouldn't be able to properly stick to the ice, making it easier for Ida to maneuver around them. Plus, Mineta isn't strong enough to throw the balls at Ida directly, so Bakugo would rip one off and throws it at Ida using an explosion. It hits him in the leg, right as he uses a reciprocal burst, making him lose his footing and boost him to the ground. To make up for this, Todoroki tells Kaminari to shock them. Bakugo leaps into the air, using explosions as Kirishima shields Mina and Mineta from the shocks. Bakugo would charge at Shoto, who would accidentally use his fire side, shielding himself from Bakugo. Todoroki would then go to grab Bakugo's points, but Mina fires a shot of acid in between them. This allows Bakugo to shoot himself backwards, keeping him in first place, as the time runs out. Meanwhile, Izuku's team would be taking the attention off themselves by hanging on to the outskirts. Any fights they could end up being in is quickly resolved by their ironclad defense and speedy tactics. They would quickly realize, however, that they need to start collecting points, or else they won't be able to pass. While they are moving, they notice Shinso's horse. They believe he'd be the easiest prey due to him being not on the hero course. Tokoyami would notice Aoyama and Ojiro, questioning why they team up with him. Maybe out of necessity, or do these guys know each other? As they approach, they'd rely on using Dark Shadow to attack from behind. Aoyama would notice this and fires his naval laser, making Dark Shadow recoil from the bright light. Shinso's team all turn around in unison to face their opponent. Shinso would begin looking over the team, noticing Izuku's watch. He comments out, "That's a nice piece of tech. It puts the person who made all the other lousy junk to shame, doesn't it?" Mei would become offended, shouting about her babies, before becoming victim to Shinso's brainwashing. This means that the right side of the formation has become limp, meaning they should attack from there. Using Ojiro's tail, they hit Tokoyami's Dark Shadow, then using Twin Impact, they knock Dark Shadow even further. It allows for Shinso to take Izuku's headband and rush away, moving in perfect harmony. Realizing they need their points back, Izuku would come up with a plan on the spot. He would activate his watch and becomes Upgrade. He then melds with all the gadgets Mei is wearing, giving her an upgrade suit like he does for Generator Rex. Uraraka would then float Mei onto the top of the horse. She's still comatose, and with no knowledge on how to break the brainwashing, Izuku would have to control Mei manually. They would then chase down Shinso's team. They catch up to the purple-haired student, knowing now to keep their mouths shut. He tries to goad them, but obviously that won't work, so he'd order Aoyama to fire a blast to keep them away. As he fires it, Izuku would leap off the horse. Upgrading the rocket boots into full-blown thrusters, Izuku and Mei's unconscious body begin to soar through the sky. It takes Shinso's full attention, leaving him ordering Aoyama to hit Izuku mid-air. It makes him completely oblivious as Tokoyami and Uraraka close in, using Dark Shadow to get in close. Covered from both angles, Shinso and his squadron are able to stop all their points getting stolen. Then using Mei's grappling hook, Izuku would grapple to the wall and upgrades it to make it strong enough to carry the whole squad away. It means that Shinso's squad will be unable to pass as the cavalry battle ends. Instead, it would be Team Monoma taking their place in the finals, which is where we're going to leave off part 2. If you enjoyed this series, why not hit the like button? Supports the channel and lets me know you want to see a part 3. I wasn't exactly hyped for this. I don't like these kind of ideas, as I've gone on record saying for many years now. But I feel like I'm the only person who can tackle them with an expert level degree. You know, I'm pretty cool. But if these series aren't done right, then they just become either Deku changes nothing, or Deku just becomes so overpowered that the story becomes boring. And I want to see if I can get a bit of a middle ground there. So Zuku, while being different power set, he is sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker, as different character interactions, and as you're going to see moving forward, there's going to be some different things happening thanks to these powers. And it's not going to just be the same events. And yeah, bye!